All right, welcome back to the channel. It's your boy Fanon. We're going to talk about the welterweight division, specifically Terence Crawford and Keith Thurman, a very realistic fight that could take place later this year that Keith Thurman says he wants, but he also talks about what he thought about Terence Crawford's last performance. Let's talk about that in this video. Welcome back to the channel. It's your boy Fanon. Before I get into the subject matter of the video though, please make sure you listen to the video all the way to the end so that you can hear what I think about the subject matter that I'm going to discuss in the first half. Also, make sure you hit the like button, share the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell icon so you can be notified of when we release more videos. All right, man, Terence Crawford and Keith Thurman is a fight that I do believe has a significant chance of happening in the mid part of the year this year. Keith Thurman was on an interview. He gave an interview to Fight Hub TV, talked about it, actually several videos up, talked about several different things. One of them was his potential fight with Terence Crawford. And he talks about what he thought about Shawn Porter when Terence Crawford beat Shawn Porter. Now, for me, I like the conversation because like I said, I think that this fight is very realistic. It can be made. It's a fight that Terence Crawford himself says that he wants. He said that he believed that the Keith Thurman fight was a bigger fight than the Shawn Porter fight. Also, if you kind of look at the lay of the land in the welterweight division, I think that this is probably the most realistic next fight for Terence Crawford if he comes back in like the July time frame, if the Errol Spence Jr. fight is not made. So what did Keith Thurman say? First, he said that he talked about the Terence Crawford fight, and he was like, man, there's a lot of people, the announcers and everybody acting like because Terence Crawford beat Shawn Porter the way that he beat Shawn Porter, that means, you know, everybody else in the division, it's like Tim Bradley said it, everybody in the division is now going to be running up to 154 pounds away from Terence Crawford. And Keith Thurman took issue with that. One of the things that he said was like, look, man, I actually predicted, and this is what he said, that when he talked about what the outcome of the fight was going to be, he said that with Keith Thurman, with Shawn Porter, that he had actually predicted what the punch would be to hurt Shawn Porter from Terence Crawford, which was a step back uppercut. And he said that's exactly how it panned out. And he talked about like how the commentators in the video the commentators of ESPN, you know, and this is specifically like Tim Bradley, we're talking about how, you know, this is the best Shawn Porter has looked in a long time, and you know what a great fight it was and what a great, you know, thing it was for Terence Crawford to beat him. Keith Thurman says, man, no, I don't think that he looked the best in that fight. And he went through the different fights with Shawn Porter and said exactly when he thought Shawn Porter looked the best. He's like, look, man, sometimes Shawn Porter can really bring it, and other times Shawn Porter doesn't bring it. He said, take, for example, like when he fought Yordenis Ugas and he fought Danny Garcia. He's like, man, during those couple fights, Shawn Porter really did not show the best Shawn Porter in either the Danny Garcia fight or the Yordenis Ugas. He didn't really get down and dirty and really, you know, and show the best that he could bring. And he likened this fight, Terence Crawford, to that and saying, look, this is a fight where Shawn, in his opinion, didn't look like he was in the best physical shape. He said that, you know, around 5, he knew that Terence Crawford was going to win the fight because he could see that Shawn Porter was slowing down. And he said, now also Terence Crawford was slowing down too, because, you know, over the length of the fight, after 5 or 6 rounds, you know, you're due to slow down. He said that Shawn Porter started slowing down, and he could tell that, you know, Terence Crawford was going to win the fight at that point in time. And then it just took a little bit more time for Shawn Porter to get more fatigued, and then that ultimately to catch up to Terence Crawford, because Terence Crawford's timing got better with Shawn Porter. Shawn's own technique started falling apart, and that's why he won the fight in the way that he won it. Now, most people would say that is hating on the part of Keith Thurman. And I can understand why people would say that, because this is a guy that Keith Thurman, that Terence Crawford is calling out Keith Thurman. And at the end of the interview, he talks about how he believes that Keith, when he's asked, are you going to fight Keith Thurman next, or do you see yourself fighting Terence Crawford next? He's like, look, man, I see myself wanting any of the guys with the belts, whether that is Errol Spence Jr., Yordenis Ugas, or Terence Crawford. Very honest answer. But if you really look at it, if Errol Spence Jr. beats Yordenis Ugas, more than likely, Keith Thurman is not going to get a fight with Errol Spence Jr. before Terence Crawford does, for two reasons. One, Errol Spence Jr. said, the obvious one is Errol Spence Jr. said, it's strap season and he wants to get undisputed. But also, he's very, very clear, Errol Spence, that he was not going to fight Keith Thurman, right? The other reason of it, that's one reason I would say, Keith Thurman, that to cut Keith Thurman a little bit of a break on that. But he says he wants to fight either one of the two guys. More than likely, though, Terence Crawford is the guy that called him out. And I don't really think that the dude is hating on Terence Crawford. I think he's just really being very honest in what he's saying. If you look at what Keith Thurman has done in his career, Keith Thurman himself still has a good amount of, should have a good amount of confidence in himself. He fought Manny Pacquiao. He fought fairly well against Manny Pacquiao in the fight that they had, other than the first half of the fight where he got knocked down. But him looking at Keith Thurman and seeing Terence Crawford beating Keith Thurman is not going to unduly impress. Is not going to really impress Keith Thurman, because Keith Thurman is somebody that already beat Shawn Porter. And that's some confidence that he can have. Also, you just got a different style of fighter between Terence Crawford and Shawn Porter. So, Keith Thurman, and honestly, Terence Crawford is also a very different fighter than Manny Pacquiao is. So some of the things that make Terence Crawford successful in the boxing ring, which is obviously his timing, his power, the fact that he switches from southpaw to orthodox, just an all-around great fighter. None of that has ever been actually, he's never executed and beat anybody in a boxing ring that Keith Thurman himself doesn't feel like he could beat. So, I don't know if he's really hating on him or whether he's just looking at him from the point of view of somebody that is also a very, very skilled fighter that believes that, he already beat Shawn Porter. So why would I be scared to fight Terence Crawford? So he said, look, man, these guys that are all talking about how everybody's scared of Terence Crawford are coming off of looking at that fight like they need to be scared. He's like, nah, I don't see that. And just as long as I get back and I have my first fight, get the rust off, he feels like he's ready to compete with Errol Spence Jr. or Terence Crawford. Now, my personal opinion on it is that I don't know if Keith Thurman is going to beat either one of those guys. And I think that even if he was in his prime, I'm not sure whether or not he'd be able to beat either one of those guys. But I will tell you that he's a better competition and a better fighter than Shawn Porter is. He's a better competition. He's a better fighter than Danny Garcia is. I believe that he's probably better than Yordenis Ugas is. And provided everything is together with him, he's going to give both of those guys difficult fights. And I think both of those fights are going to go to the scorecards. And if in a situation with Terence Crawford, Terence Crawford winds up taking a long time to figure out Keith Thurman, do not be surprised if Keith Thurman couldn't pull that fight out on the scorecards, because people do fight Terence Crawford very closely up until the point in time where Terence Crawford takes him out. But anyway, I just thought that was interesting information to share. Keith Thurman is definitely boiling up, trying to get to the head of the division. And with Shawn Porter no longer in the division, Danny Garcia no longer in the division, hey, man, why not get a guy another shot? But anyway, that's my take on the matter. You let me know what you think in the comment section. And with that, I'm out. Peace.